Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well let's learn English together. And here we are again. We're back in the studio and you're back on the sofa. Are you comfy? Yes? Good. Is your coffee sweet enough? Yes? Good. And are you prepared and willing for today's lesson? You are? Great. That's fantastic. So, let's get stuck in. Okay. Now, last lesson we looked at what? That's correct. Last lesson we met a new form of adjective, the superlative form. I'm not going to ask you if you all remember. I know you all remember. Now, we learned that we make the superlative form by adding est to most adjectives and then putting the in front. If the adjective ends in an e, then we add st to the end and put the in front. Good. Now, just like the comparative form, bigger, smaller, older, if the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant, we double the last letter before we add est. So big becomes the biggest and hot becomes the hottest. Okay, great. Now, if the adjective ends in y, like the adjective heavy or the adjective ugly, then we drop the y and then add est. So heavy becomes the heaviest and ugly becomes the ugliest. Simple. Okay, now today we're going to learn about how to make the superlative form with long adjectives. Adjectives with 2 or 3 or 4 syllables. So, you all remember how we change a longer adjective into a comparative, don't you? Of course you remember. If an adjective has 2 or 3 or 4 syllables, then we don't change the end of the adjective. Instead, we put more in front of the base adjective. It's not expensiver, it's more expensive. It's not interestinger, it's more interesting. Now, to make the superlative form of longer adjectives, again, we don't change the end of the adjective. We put the most in front of the base adjective. So, expensive is the base adjective. We change this to more expensive to create the comparative form and change it to the most expensive to create the superlative form. So, we don't say the expensivest, but the most expensive. And we don't say the interestingest, but the most interesting. Great. Now, let's think about the Benchfield kids for a moment. Do you remember the chart we saw about the kids? There was a chart that Mabel showed us. In the chart there was information about the kids, about their ages, heights and weights. Do you remember the chart? Well, let's have another gander at the chart, shall we? Mabel, player of darts, do us a favour and look for the charts, please. Okay, now let's practice using the superlative with the information in the table, shall we? So, if we look at the table, we can see that Tim Benchfield is older than his brother and sisters. This means what? That's cock-a-doodle-doo right you are, squire. This means that Tim Benchfield is the oldest. And what can we say about John? Well, we can make 2 superlative sentences about John Benchfield, can't we? First, if we look at the Benchfield kids' ages, we can see that John is the youngest Benchfield child. Okay, good. Now, for a bonus point. What other sentence can we make about John using a superlative? That's right. Look at the children's heights. John is also the shortest Benchfield. We can also say that John is the smallest Benchfield, but the shortest is better because the opposite of tall is short, not small. But a lot of people make this mistake, and it's not a big mistake. Good. Now, let's practice with some other adjectives. Thank you, Benchfield kids. You were a great help. Now, one thing we didn't think about yet is irregular adjectives. What happens to irregular adjectives? Well, I'll tell you. You remember the irregular adjectives we learnt before and the way that they changed when we created the comparative form. Do you remember that good and well changed to better and bad changed to worse? You do? Good. Now, let's see what we do when we want to create the superlative form of these adjectives. The superlative form for good is the best, and the superlative form of bad is the worst. I think that'd look good in a table, don't you? Okay then. Mabel, Mabel, a request from our staff. Help out your friends, please, with a graph. Thank you, Mabel. So, let's practice those irregular comparative and superlative forms. Listen to the conversation between Gordon Taylor and Alfredo Benchfield. Oh my God! Alfredo, what did we drink last night? I can't remember. I think we drank everything. My head hurts. It feels like there's a Frenchman living in my head. We're really hungover. This is the worst hangover in the world. No, you're wrong, Alfredo. The hangover we had after Christmas Eve, that was the worst hangover in the world. Yes, you're right, Gordon. That hangover was worse than this hangover. That hangover was the worst hangover. And then there was the hangover we had after New Year's Eve. That was a bad hangover. True, true, but that hangover wasn't as bad as this hangover. No, I suppose you're right. That hangover was better than this hangover. But the hangover we had after Christmas was the worst hangover. Yes, I agree. The hangover we had after New Year's Eve was a bad hangover. And today's hangover is worse than the New Year's Eve hangover. But the worst hangover was the hangover we had after Christmas Eve. I agree. The hangover we had after New Year's Eve wasn't as bad as today's hangover, but the hangover we had after Christmas Eve was the worst hangover. That hangover was worse than the New Year's Eve hangover, and that hangover was worse than today's hangover too. Gordon, please, shut up! My head was painful, and now, when you keep banging on about hangovers, my head is more painful. Shut up, please! Okay, I'll shut up. Do you want another drink? Shut up! Oh dear. They're not having fun, are they? Blimey, those two never learn. Another hangover. They drink too much, I think. Okay, let's think about some animals. Let's look at animals we can use superlative adjective forms with. Well, what's this animal? Okay, so this is a cheetah. And what do we know about cheetahs? Well, they are the fastest animals on land. So the cheetah can run faster than any other animal. The cheetah is the fastest animal on land. A cheetah can run at 96 kilometers an hour. Now, what's this? It's a whale. Great, but what type of whale is it? It's a blue whale. And what do we know about blue whales? Well, they're the biggest mammals in the world. Okay, now let's stay in the water and look at a fish. This fish. This is the fastest fish in the world, and it's a sailfish. The sailfish is the fastest fish in the world. The sailfish can swim at 109 kilometers an hour. Okay, now let's move in the other direction, into the air. This is a peregrine falcon, the fastest bird on Earth. When a peregrine falcon attacks, it flies at 322 kilometers an hour. That speed makes it the fastest bird in the air. But also, the peregrine falcon is the fastest animal on Earth. Okay, that was fast. What about slow? Well, this is a sloth. Now, the sloth is the slowest animal in the world. The sloth moves at a speed of 0.24 kilometers an hour. That's really slow. Okay, we've seen the fastest, the slowest, the biggest, and now here's the smallest. This is a fairy fly. The fairy fly is the smallest animal in the world. The fairy fly is very, very small. Its average length is between 0.5 and 1 millimeter. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a very small flying thing. This is the world's smallest animal. Great. Now, let's have a break from the smallest animal in the world. It's time for something new, with your friend and mine, the studio's very own favourite electric eel, Enid Fotherington Smythe. Take it away, Enid. Hello, people. Hello, hello. Now, it's nice what Gav's been talking about. We all know that comparisons are very important. This champagne is better than that champagne, for example. My cocktail parties are much nicer than Mrs. Polkinghorne's cocktail parties, is another true example. Mrs. Polkinghorne's cocktail parties are very boring. And when I was at Mrs. Polkinghorne's last cocktail party, I was trapped by a very boring man called Giles. He thought I was wonderful. Well, I am. But I thought he was very boring, horrible little man. I wanted to get away from him, but I didn't want to insult him. So, what do you think I said? Well, there are a number of things we can say to excuse ourselves and get away from people. Here are a few of my favorites. You can say, "Oh, please excuse me. I need to ask our host something." You can also say, "Oh, please excuse me. I've finished my drink. I'd better get another one." You can say, "Excuse me, but do you know where the toilet is?" You can say, "Oh, I think it's time for us to mingle." Or you can use my favorite, "Oh, that's Rupert calling me. I must talk to him. Please excuse me." So, as you see, the most important thing is to be polite. Always say, "Excuse me," and then you can leave the person without appearing rude. "Oh, please excuse me. I have to dash. Toodaloo, pip pip, kitty bye." Oh, has she gone? I wanted to talk to her. Oh well, never mind. Okay, well, that's all the time we've got for today's lesson. We're out of time. Okay, well, I had fun today. I hope you had fun today too. I'm Gav Duncan, and this is M5's Let's Speak English. Don't forget to check out all the videos at www.m5tv.hu. See you next lesson. See you later. Bye.